Okay, so we're headed towards this one world currency system. And my natural question is, what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar? I have a personal need to know.
The personal dollar is bye-bye. And the proof of that would be the super billionaire George Soros that most people are aware of. I was watching him on the BBC speak to about 25 million Europeans live, and he quite openly spoke about the fact that the plan is to devalue the dollar. And the purpose for devaluing the dollar is you can't bring in a world currency if you have a strong dollar. So you have to lower the dollar to equalize the playing field. That way you can merge the currencies into a one world currency. And he came out and basically said that on BBC. He was very open. So he said the goal is to devalue the dollar. And then he said we're going to bring in a one world currency. But then he also said that part of the goal is to transfer the wealth out of the American middle class and middle class from other nations, transfer the wealth out of the middle class into third world nations, which some people may think is Christians, but it's going to go into the hands of dictators. So it's going to reduce the dollar, but also it's going to destroy the middle class. You'll have an elite upper class, and you'll have a giant lower class or worker.
And my natural question is, what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar? I have a personal need to know.
The personal dollar is bye-bye. And the proof of that would be the super billionaire George Soros that most people are aware of. I was watching him on the BBC speak to about 25 million Europeans live, and he quite openly spoke about the fact that the plan is to devalue the dollar. And the purpose for devaluing the dollar is you can't bring in a world currency if you have a strong dollar. So you have to lower the dollar to equalize the playing field. That way you can merge the currencies into a one world currency. And he came out and basically said that on BBC. He was very open. So he said the goal is to devalue the dollar. And then he said we're going to bring in a one world currency. But then he also said that part of the goal is to transfer the wealth out of the American middle class and middle class from other nations, transfer the wealth out of the middle class into third world nations, which some people may think is Christians, but it's going to go into the hands of dictators. So it's going to reduce the dollar, but also it's going to destroy the middle class. You'll have an elite upper class, and you'll have a giant...
The United Kingdom's Information Commissioner claims that in 2017, consumers will be cashless shoppers. A microchip holding personal bank account and credit card information will be implanted into the body, connecting to a database that will know who they are, where they live, what they like, and what they don't like. Shoppers will have their hand scanned, not their credit card.
A system touted as a national security necessity is being used to build a database where the biometric identity of millions of Americans will be gathered and stored.
We're meeting with the president in order to formulate legislation that would require every person in the United States of America who is employed to carry a biometric identification card with them.
The president put in a lot of money in the stimulus package to advance medical records so that if you have the chip, you can carry the records with you. They can stick it in a computer. They can know all your situations.
They'll have a GPS chip in there so that they can measure everybody, every instant, no matter where they go.
Your ID card would have either your fingerprint, your thumbprint on there, or it would have a reading of the veins in the back of your hand.
The most powerful nation on earth is set to betray its citizens with new mandatory revisions to citizenship and constitutional privacy.
The United Kingdom's Kingdom's Information Commissioner claims that in 2017, consumers will be cashless shoppers. A microchip holding personal bank account and credit card information will be implanted into the body, connecting to a database that will know who they are, where they live, what they like, and what they don't like. Shoppers will have their hand scanned, not their credit card.
A system touted as a national security necessity is being used to build a database where the biometric identity of millions of Americans will be gathered and stored.
We're meeting with the president in order to formulate legislation that would require every person in the United States of America who is employed to carry a biometric identification card with them.
The president put in a lot of money in the stimulus package to advance medical records so that if you have the chip, you can carry the records with you. They can stick it in a computer. They can know all your situations.
They'll have a GPS chip in there so that they can measure everybody, every instant.
How would you like to have an RFID microchip implanted underneath your skin? Or maybe an electronic tattoo that sticks to your arm or your wrist. Not only does it look badass and trendy, but it's also every bit as useful and complex as your smartphone. Now, I know it sounds like something futuristic or even something out of a science fiction movie, but guess what? The future is now. Not only does this technology already exist, but it's already being developed and implemented at a rapid and accelerated pace as the technological elite finally begin to bridge the gap between our digital and physical identities.
It sounds like science fiction, placing a microchip under the skin to get you in your door, to start your car, or maybe give your doctor your medical history.
Or what if your child were to disappear? Would you be willing to place a chip in your child if it might help them bring them home? Barry Davis recently looked into what all this technology is about and the possibilities of this science.
According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, more than 2,000 children are reported missing each day. Most are found, some never are. But what if there was the technology which could help bring those children home? And that technology was no bigger than a grain of rice.
Elliot! Oh gosh. He's on the swings. Oh hi. Yeah, that scared me.
It's something most every parent has felt. That sick panic. You're watching your child play, having fun. You turn your head for just a moment, and they're gone.
My stomach drops, I feel nauseous and dizzy, and I imagine all of the horrible things that could happen.
Trish Dickerson is the mother of a rambunctious 3.5-year-old who has no fear of anything or anybody.
And it scares me. It scares me so much. Someone would just be like, hey, I have candy, and he'd be like, heck yes, candy.
We've been microchipping our pets for years, so why not use that technology to protect something far more precious?
It's technically realistic.
Stuart Lipoff is an electronics engineer who's watching the microchip industry closely. He says by placing signposts or portals like this handheld unit for animals in key locations, you could track someone. Some people are already placing microchips in their hands, which help them control everything from their computers to opening their front doors. And most of us use microchips every day to open doors to work or buy lunch with a debit or credit card.
The ick factor, it still is kind of icky of, having somebody, put something into your body that's a foreign thing.
Lipoff says it's only a matter of time before people realize how beneficial it could be, and not just for convenience, but in what...
Radio frequency identification. It's already been put in the Blink credit cards, passports, license tags. They're everywhere. Watch for a full court press to have them implanted in your pets. Not an ID chip, a tracker. They're beta tested, but you'll start to see more of them at your vet's offices. OnStar for your pooch. You can track your little doggy. Peace of mind. Next. If it's good enough for your dog, it's good enough for your child. A tiny little RFID chip the size of a grain of rice. Completely safe. Easy to remove. Your child is now kidnap-proof, and the placement of the chip will be varied, so God forbid some sicko doesn't look at one particular place to forcibly remove it. OnStar for your child. No more Amber Alerts, no more kidnapping, no more parents' worst nightmare. After all, if it's good enough for your pet, it's good enough for your child. Then, the elderly. Forget that I've fallen and can't get up business. Oh, no, this RFID chip will have all of Grandma's medical information and data on it. And if they have dementia and wander off, you'll be able to track them. After all, if it's good enough for your dog. Then once it's deemed cool, teens will insist on their own chip. They're already tattooing barcodes. It's cool. It's their own number. And this will be your own chip, all of your information, always stressing the medical information bit. What information? She's 20 years old. Shh, it's for her own good. And you can track them. And you know that kids won't wear watches anymore. They've got cell phones with the time on it. In your cool chip, no need for driver's licenses, credit cards, debit cards, keyless entry, ID. No, the RFID chip will have it all there, all of it. Goodbye wallets. After all, what's a wallet for? ID, cards, not anymore. Oh, and money will be completely cashless. Blink terminals will read your chip. Think Easy Pass or MetroCard. No cash, no drug trafficking, no terrorism. Make any connection you want. No one's listening anyway. Then you'll beg for one. Everything's on the chip. Everyone's on the grid. The grid is a 24/7 real-time tracking of you. Everyone will have this cool chip. Everyone's on the grid. And if you're convicted of breaking some law, they don't send you to prison. They turn off your chip. Poof. You don't exist. No money, no identity, no existence. And you're worried about an iPhone being tracked? You wait and see.
Getting on a bus or getting into the office, many of us these days are used to swiping an electronic card. But how would you feel if the microchip wasn't in the card but in your hand instead?
Not holding in your hand.
Under the skin.
Under the skin. Well, one company in Sweden is doing just that. It offers its staff the chance to have the chip inserted. Our technology correspondent, Rory Kathleen-Jones, has been finding out how it works.
Stockholm and a nondescript building has been converted into a high-tech office space. But look under the skin to find something really futuristic. Felicio da Costa doesn't need a pass to get in. Then it's another swipe of his hand for access to his office. What's going on?
I've got a chip implant. So that's why the doors let me in.
Where's the chip?
The chip is right inside here.
The new offices will soon host a shifting population of 700 entrepreneurs and employees, and they'll all be offered the chance to get chipped if they wish. As well as opening doors, that'll allow them to use the photocopiers and eventually to log on to computers or pay for food in the cafe.
Hi, Hannes. Can I get your contacts?
Sure. The man behind the scheme, whose business card can be accessed via his chip, says the aim is to learn lessons.
We want to be able to understand this technology before big corporates and big government come to us and say, hey, everyone should get chipped, the tax authority chip or the Google chip or Facebook chip.
Another feature of this unconventional office, dogs are welcome. But while we're used to having our pets chipped, putting technology under our own skin may be a step too far.
Let's talk now to technology blogger Martin Bryant, and from our studio in Berkshire is Professor Kevin Warwick, who studies the relationship between technology and humans and is also believed to be the first person to have had a silicon chip surgically implanted into his body. Well, we've got to ask, Professor, where is this chip and how did it feel? Can you see it? Does it work?
Well, all of that. Hopefully I'm holding it up now. This is the one I actually had implanted, and it was implanted in my arm by a doctor. Part of it is a coil of wire, and that's how it gets its power, and that's how it communicates. And then the rest is a few chips on which you store an identifying code, and that code is transmitted out, which identifies you to the system.
And did it hurt when it was put in, and did you notice when it was in while you had it in?
I noticed it was there at first, but then very quickly you get used to it. The thing that Rory has got, I'm trying to hold up something, it's very difficult to see, but it's very, very small. It's like the size of a very small grain of rice. And that
Before, I will say it again, we can't balance the budget on the backs of the very people who have borne the biggest brunt of this recession. Everyone's going to have to chip in. That's only fair. That's the principle I'll be fighting for during the next phase of this process.
Joining us now to make his case is Scott Silverman. He's chairman and CEO of Applied Digital Solutions. That's the parent company of VeriChip. And Mr. Silverman, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We're looking at this little chip right here. You brought some in with us, tiny little things. But what we heard yesterday was kind of scary. How do you react to that?
Well, Becky, thanks for having us back on the air. We appreciate that very much. And obviously the comments that were made yesterday is the reason that I'm sitting here today. As you know, VeriChip has been approved by the FDA as a Class 2 medical device in order to identify high-risk patients in an emergency situation. It's elective, it's voluntary, and it is certainly critical to the evolution of information technology in healthcare, which we all know is archaic, the way healthcare is done today in emergency rooms and physicians' offices.
Do you hate it when you get to the office and then discover you left your ID at home? Well, one company in Sweden has come up with a unique way to make sure that doesn't happen. A microchip implant. NBC's Keir Simmons is in Stockholm this morning with more on that. Keir, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. You've seen it in the movies. A human being merges with a computer to become a so-called cyborg. Well, I have now had a computer chip inserted into my left hand. It cost around $300, and in a moment, in what will surely be a live television first, I'm going to open a door with my cyborg hand.
We're going to put a man inside a machine.
Okay, so they're not going to turn me into RoboCop, but here in Sweden at this high-tech office block, they're going to inject a computer chip into my hand. And this is the guy who's going to do it.
Are you nervous?
I am nervous.
Yeah. Yes. You don't have to be, it's not going to be that bad.
Really? Because that's a big needle. Okay. Cecilia Osterholm starts her day with this new technology. She swapped her keys for a chip in her hand that uses a radio signal to open doors. You have a chip in your hand there?
That's right. It's been inserted there.
Right. So that's how do you open it? Just like that. So obviously what I really want to know is how much it hurts.
It does hurt a little.